presently India's most unpopulated state. Sikkim, situated in northeastern India lining Bhutan, Nepal and China's Tibet Autonomous Region, was a sovereign country for quite a long time. As per legend, a 14th-century Tibetan ruler named Kai Bumsa came to Sikkim after a heavenly disclosure guaranteed him wealth. In 1642 Bumsa's relative Phuntsog Namgyal was sanctified cleric ruler of the new kingdom of Sikkim, helped by essential unions in the Himalayas characteristic guards. The realm fought of attacks from all headings in the coming hundreds of years. During the 1700s, Sikkim repulsed attacks from both the Bhutanese and Nepalese, notwithstanding the last obliterating the Sikkimese capital of Rabdamse. During the 1800s, with the British Empire administering adjoining India, Sikkim aligned with the Brits against their shared adversary, Nepal. In the resulting Gurkha War of 1814, the Nepalese momentarily overran Sikkim, however were at last no counterpart for Britain, which re-established Sikkim independence in 1817. What truly disintegrated the kingdom was its residents' requests for majority rule system. At the point when India acquired autonomy in 1947, compelling Sikkimese framed the Sikkim State Congress, whose essential stage was incorporation with India and, through its self-administration. In spite of education rates and per capita livelihoods twice that of adjoining countries, many years of common distress followed until at last, in May 1975, Sikkim turned into India's 22nd state. Today, Sikkim is a broadly testing objective for hikers. A full third of the state is Kangchenjunga National Park, which incorporates Mount Kangchenjunga, the most elevated top in India and third tallest on Earth. It's normal information that Texas was before its own country, consequently its solitary star state moniker. Nonetheless, for a very long time in the late 18th century, so was the little northeastern province of Vermont. All through the mid-1700s, when the present-day United States was as yet British claimed, Vermont had a progression of land award questions with its contiguous sister settlement, New York. Tragically for Vermont, the contest was direct and hostile. Basically, New York asserted the majority of Vermont as its own. By the 1770s, Vermont local armies like Ethan Allen's Green Mountain Boys had depended on assaulting New York authorities and lease gatherers. By 1777, with the American Revolution warming up, Vermonters had enough. Notwithstanding not being one of the 13 states to announce autonomy from the Crown, the upstart settlement proclaimed itself liberated from both Great Britain and New York. All at once, the Vermont Republic was once in the past set up. The minor yet decided new country embraced a constitution, the first in North America to boycott subjection and abrogate property limitations on democratic, and set up its own money. Up and down. An objective of Vermont's freedom was to acquire U.S. statehood. However, when Congress would not remember it as isolated from New York, Vermont ventured to such an extreme as to appeal to the British for confederation with Canada. That didn't appear either, and in 1791, Vermont at last arranged its approach to turning into the 14th U.S. state by paying New York $30,000 for lost domain. For longer than a century, a 900-section of land sovereign state existed in cutting-edge Belgium. The ascent of Neutral Moresnet connected with the fall of Napoleon. At the point when the 1815 Congress of Vienna redrew the guide of Europe following the French despots' thrashing, among the lines to be resolved was the one isolating the Netherlands and Prussia. One locale demonstrated especially risky because of its adequate stores of zinc. To break the strategic impasse, The sides consented to make the zone altogether managed at this point formally autonomous country, forthcoming a future decision that won't ever come. Unbiased Moresnet built up its own money and a banner dependent on the shades of what else, a nearby zinc mining organization. When the zinc ran out, both Prussia and Belgium, which acquired autonomy from the Netherlands in 1830, applied their impact. Belgium created income from its joint endeavor by means of a gambling club and dedicatory stamps during the 1890s. Prussia embraced a bombed endeavor to make Neutral Moresnet the primary country to completely accept Esperanto, a then new dialect expected to develop into a generally perceived tongue. Non-partisan Moresnet's run suddenly finished with World War I, when Germany originally attacked then deserted the small country, notwithstanding finishing the Great War. The 1919 Treaty of Versailles additionally settled the very long-term question that had made Neutral Moresnet, granting it just as nearby regions to Belgium. Nine years before the Republic of Texas, there was the Republic of Fredonia, the first and woefully brief endeavor by whites to withdraw from Mexico. In December 1826, a gathering drove by Pilgrim Hayden Edwards held onto control of the town of Nacogdoches, situated in cutting-edge Mason County in eastern Texas, and proclaimed the land an autonomous vote-based system. Edwards was an empresario, a pioneer allowed land by the Mexican government in return for enrolling more lasting occupants in distant areas of eastern Texas. Since this district lined the actually developing United States, Mexico needed to build up the land to keep invasions from its expansionist disapproved of adjoining country. Edwards flipped the course of action on its head by guaranteeing the land was his to do with however he wanted, including discovered his own Wild West country. He and 15 individual Fredonians framed another administration complete with its own banner. To safeguard his incipient country, Edwards marked an arrangement with the territory's Cherokee Indian clan, which questioned Mexico's administration following quite a while of stomped all over land rights deals. In any case, suggestions from another regarded impresario, Stephen Austin, namesake of the advanced state capital and frequently called the father of Texas, persuaded Cherokee pioneers to disavow the defiance. On January 31, 1827, scarcely a month into the analysis, Mexican officers and Texian State Army walked into Nacogdoches to re-establish request. The Cherokee boss who'd at first accepted Fredonia was executed by his own clan, and Edwards escaped east to the United States. "50 years after Vermont's fleeting power, a 300-in-number band of inhabitants in adjoining New Hampshire pronounced their freedom, just they didn't exactly have the foggiest idea what nation to advise of their freshly discovered independence. The region at that point known as Indian Stream had been the point of convergence of a running line question between the United States and British-controlled Canada, with both guaranteeing Indian Stream as its own. For Indian streamers this was fine and dandy, until two arrangements of duty authorities appeared. So in July 1832, they sent both Uncle Sam and his UK-identical home with practically nothing aside from a notification that Indian Stream was currently its own country. Gather this, taxman. The Indian Stream Republic's newly printed constitution ordered that home standard would stay in actuality, till such time as we can learn to what government we appropriately have a place. Officials from both the US and Canada served warrants, which prompted a few vicious occurrences. It required 3 entire years for the insubordinate, minute country to ascend sufficiently high on the New Hampshire Civilian Army's needs list. At last in mid-1835, at gunpoint, Indian streamers permitted their country to converge with New Hampshire. The British, in any case, would not regard the new course of action. And sometime thereafter a worldwide episode arose when a British obligation authority captured an Indian streamer for a neglected bill. Reluctant to do battle for such frivolities, the British withdrew. Indian Stream was renamed Pittsburg, and authoritatively became U.S. domain under 1842 deal explaining different inquiries concerning the U.S.-Canada line. Referred to in antiquated occasions as Hermia, and accepted to be where Pope Pontian kicked the bucket after his 235 AD capture and surrender. The limestone island of Tavalara quantifies simply 5 kilometers long and 1 kilometer wide. All through its checkered history, Tavalara's unassuming size and nearness to Sardinia, Corsica and advanced Italy has made it a take-off platform for would-be aggressors, including 9th-century Arab bandits and, after a centuries, a bombed endeavor by Napoleon's brother by marriage, Joachim Murat, to recapture the Kingdom of Naples. Yet, Tavalara's most amazing day came in 1836. When a shepherd named Giuseppe Bertoleoni, at the time the island's sole inhabitant, broadcasted that the King of Sardinia, Charles Albert, had named him King of Tavolara during a new visit. Despite the pronouncement's sketchy, best-case scenario legitimateness, the polygamist Bertoleoni carried every one of his 2 families to his new realm and, in 1845, passed the crown down to his child, Paolo, who ruled for more than 40 years. In 1868, the as-of-late bound-together Italian government started working a beacon on the island. In spite of this illuminous attack, the regal family endured. The fanciful crown passed to Paolo's little girl, Mariangela, at that point to Paolo II and Carlo II. Truth be told, Tavalara is still a completely working, but completely unrecognized realm. Its present ruler is Antonio Bertoleoni, who passes by Tonino and possesses a cafe of a similar name. Canada's easternmost region, Newfoundland, was at one time its own country whose sway endured all the way into the 20th century. Newfoundlanders battled under their own flag in World War II before officially turning out to be Canadians in 1949. First settled by Basque Anglers in 1563. Newfoundland before long turned into a British belonging. Indeed, it was England's first perpetual region in North America. Settlements prospered across Newfoundland as it gathered a standing for a portion of the world's most beneficial fishing. In 1854, Newfoundland acquired some proportion of self-sufficiency when Britain set up its self-deciding responsible government. In 1907, the island turned into a full self-administering domain, a status like Canada's. In World War I, Newfoundland lost almost its whole regiment in 1916's Battle of the Somme. The consolidated obligation from the war and development of the Newfoundland Railway, further exacerbated by profound decreases in fish costs because of the Great Depression, left Newfoundland in monetary emergency. So in 1933, in return for insured credits from England, the responsible government was disbanded. In spite of the fact that guaranteed a revisitation of self-administration once the economy improved, individuals of Newfoundland at last casted a ballot to join Canada in July 1948. Alongside the adjoining an area of Labrador, to which it was connected in the last part of the 1920s, Newfoundland turned into the country's 10th territory the next year. Today, Newfoundland actually stands separated for one turmoil causing differentiation. The territory has its own weirdo time region, 30 minutes in front of the other Atlantic regions and an hour and a half in front of Eastern Time Zone cities Montreal and Toronto. Off the southern tip of Nova Scotia, Canada lies outer-bald Tusket Island. During the 1930s, the three-section of land island facilitated the world's most conspicuous worldwide fishing competition. In 1948, American financial specialist Russell Arundel bought it from two local people for the attractive amount of $750. His humble buy gave a false representation of self-important aims, a sovereign, just country contained totally of angler. A declaration of independence before long followed. Leave these realities alone submitted to a real world that anglers are a race alone, supplied with the accompanying unavoidable rights, independence from question, bothering, shaving, interference, ladies' charges, governmental issues, discourses, etc. The juvenile outer Baldonia before long had a sanction, a fish-enhanced banner, visas and a military. Arundel gave himself the title, ruler of princes, and all residents who got a bluefin fish and paid a $50 expense were agreed the position of sovereign. Everything was going wonderfully until 1953. When USSR state media distributed a study of the new country's flighty sanction. External Baldonia's not exactly estimated reaction was to proclaim battle on the Soviet Union on March 9, 1953. Fortunately for the Soviets, the Baldonian Naval Force, a marine power of 69 chief naval officers, never assaulted, and in the end Arundel lost interest in his received country. In 1973, he offered the island to the Nova Scotia Bird Society. Today the previous Outer Baldonia is assigned the early Arundel breeding bird sanctuary. Zanzibar, an island off the eastern shore of Tanzania otherwise called Unguja, has been possessed for at any rate 20,000 years. It is alluded to as Menethius in antiquated Greco-Roman writings, and in the 1st century AD was settled both by Bantu-speaking Africans and outcast Arabs. Its European impact started with Vasco da Gama's visit in 1498, with Portugal guaranteeing Zanzibar presently. Their standard was to a great extent hands-off until 1635, when the Sultan of Mombasa, Kenya, organized a slaughter of Portuguese occupants, inciting the European ability to develop a military fortress. Regardless, the Sultan of Oman accepted export in 1698, and Zanzibar immediately turned into a center of the East African slave exchange. During the 1800s, the British Empire utilized its immense impact to boycott servitude in the district, and ultimately asserted Zanzibar as a protectorate in 1890. As it did with other distant, the British at last conceded Zanzibar autonomy, and in December 1963 a sacred government was set up, for everyone of 1 month. In an upset that murdered somewhere in the range of 20,000 inhabitants, the decision Sultan Jamshid Kanistru Abdullah was ousted, and the Communist People's Republic of Zanzibar and Pemba, another close-by island, was established. This likewise was fleeting. In April 1964, Zanzibar converged with its terrain neighbor, at that point known as Tanganyika. The joined nation was before long renamed Tanzania to grandstand the new association, which stays right up till the present time. This last one is out there, way, a long distance. Otherwise called the Space Kingdom, Asgardia was shaped in October 2016 by a gathering of individuals who dispatched a satellite into Earth's circle. Alluding to themselves as Asgardians, embed joke here, they proclaimed sway over the space involved by and contained inside their satellite. Asgardia-1, basically considering the to be as a man-made, versatile country. The Asgardians have received a constitution, whose prelude announces the goal of joining the future mankind as transethnic, transnational, transreligious, moral, reasonable, quiet, investigating the limitless universe in view of balance and pride of each person. Sputnik me Peacenik. Hashtag no justice, no gravity. Notwithstanding its, in a real sense, shapeless long-haul desires, Asgardia has a bunch of close-term objectives. Asgardians desire to pioneer free admittance to space and build up a lasting settlement on a moon by 2043. Another key activity is encouraging the primary labor in space, which Asgardians see as an urgent advance on our way to interminability as an animal groups. Igor Ashur Bailey, who began the Asgardia Independent Research Center, is the space country's establishing father and flow head of state. The country likewise has a 150-part parliament, and has proposed as its lawful delegate a digital currency called Solar.